Hello guys, so I am going to share the information about the respiratory system. The respiratory system is the set of the organs that allows a person to breathe and exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide throughout the body. The integrated system of organs involved in the intake and exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the body and the environment, and including the nasal passages, larynx, trachea, bronchial tubes, and lungs. The respiratory system performs two major tasks. The first one is exchange of air between the body and outside environment, known as the external respiration. And the second one is bringing the oxygen to the cells and removing the carbon dioxide, which is referred as the internal respiration. Some of the functions are supplies that it supplies the body with the oxygen and disposes the carbon dioxide, filters the inspired air, it produces the sound, contains receptor for smell, rids the body of some excess water and heat, and help regulates the blood pH. Breathing. So breathing is also known as the pulmonary ventilation, consists of the two cyclic phases. The first one is inhalation, also called inspiration, which draws gases into the lungs, and the second one is exhalation, also called expiration, which forces the gas out of the lungs. Which forces the gas out of the lungs. The air from the outside environment enters the nose or mouth during the inspiration, which is also known as inhalation. The composed of the nose and nasal cavity, paranasal sinuses, pharynx, and larynx, all the parts of the conducting portion of the respiratory system. It is some are also called as the external hairs, divided into the two halves by the nasal spectrum. Contains the paranasal sinuses where the air is warmed, contains cilia which is responsible for filtering out the foreign bodies. The external nares are the opening to the pharynx, and the nasal cocci. It is a fold in the mucous membrane that increases air turbulence and ensures that the air contacts the mucous membrane, provides the airway for the respiration, and moistens and warms entering air, filters and cleans the inspired air, resonating the chamber for the speech, and detects the odor in the airstream. The common space used by both the respiratory and the digestive system, the commonly called as the throat, the originated posterior to the nasal and the oral cavity, and extend inferiorly near the level of the bifurcation of the larynx, and esophagus, the common pathway for both air and food. It is called as pharynx. The walls are lined by the mucosa and contain the skeletal muscle that are primarily used for swallowing. The flexible lateral walls are distensible in order to force swallowed food into the esophagus. The next one is larynx. Nasopharynx. It is the pharynx is divided into the three major subtypes: nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. Nasopharynx contain the pharyngeal tonsils, which aids in the body's immune defense. The second one is oropharynx, back portion of the mouth that contains the palatine tonsil, which aids in the body's immune defense. And the third one is laryngopharynx, the bottom section of the pharynx where the respiratory tract divided into the esophagus and the larynx. The next one is the larynx. It is also called as voice box, is a short, somewhat cylindrical airway that ends in the trachea, prevents solid materials from entering the lower respiratory tract, conducts air into the lower respiratory tract, and produces the sound, supported by the framework of the 9 pieces of cartilage, 3 individual pieces and 3 cartilage pairs that are held in the place by the ligaments and the muscles. The next one is trachea, a flexible tube also called as a windpipe. It extends through the mediastinum and lies anterior to the esophagus and inferior to the larynx. Cartilage rings reinforce and provide rigidity to the tracheal wall to ensure that the trachea remains open all the time. At the time of the sternal angle, the trachea bifurcates into the two smaller tubes called the right and the left primary bronchi. Each primary bronchi projects laterally towards the each lung. So the next part in the respiratory system is lungs. So each lungs has a conical shape. It is wide concave base raised upon the muscular diaphragm. Its superior region, called as the apex, projects superiorly to the point that is slightly superior and posterior to clavicle. Both lungs are bordered by the thoracic wall anteriorly, laterally, and posteriorly, and supported by the rib cage. Toward the midline, the lungs are separated from each other by the mediastinum. Relatively broad or a rounded surface in contact with the thoracic wall is called costal surface of the lung. The lungs are divided into there are two lungs, the left lung and the right lung. The left lung is divided into two lobes by oblique fissure. The left lung is smaller than the right lung as it creates the space for the heart. The right lung is divided into the three lobes by the oblique and horizontal fissure, located more superiorly in the body due to the liver on the right side. The next one is the outer surface of the pleura. The outer surface of each lungs and adjacent internal thoracic wall are lined by the serous membrane called pleura. The outer surface of each lung is tightly covered by the vesical pleura, while the internal thoracic wall and the lateral surfaces of the mediastinum and the superior surfaces of the diaphragm are lined by the parietal pleura. So the pleural cavities, the potential between the serous membrane layers is the pleural cavity. The pleural membrane produces a thin serous pleural fluid that circulates in the pleural cavity and acts as a lubricant, ensuring the minimum friction between the breathing. So how the lungs work? The air enters the lungs through the system of the pipes called as the bronchi. The alveoli are where the important works of the gas exchange takes place between the air and your body, covering each alveolus in the whole network of the little blood vessel called capillaries. It is important that the air in the alveoli and the blood in the capillaries are very close together, so that oxygen and carbon dioxide can move between them. When you breathe in, the air comes down the trachea and through the bronchi into the alveoli. This is fresh air, has a lots of oxygen in it, and some of this oxygen will travel across the walls of the alveoli into your bloodstream. Traveling in the opposite direction is the carbon dioxide, which crosses from the blood in the capillaries into the air in the alveoli and is then breathed out. In this way, you bring in your body the oxygen that you need to live and get rid of the waste product of the carbon dioxide. So this was the process of the respiratory system, and that's how the respiration takes place in the human body. Thank you so much.